morning, everyone. Hello. So we are here today to discuss about the Renaissance era, about what happened in there, about the literature, and also the architecture, and how this specific era influenced
The
the
society.
society. Okay. So, first thing first, we're gonna introduce us our name. My name is Nadya Putri Kinasih, and my last three digit of student number is 069.
And my name is Luvian Dhini Erwansyah, and my last three digits number is 067.
And my name is Aufarrel Henanda, and my last three student numbers is 072.
Okay, so coming into the field of paintings and music in the Renaissance era. So for the music, as we know, before the Renaissance era, mostly uh, specifically everything in the society is regulated and controlled by the Catholic Church or the Pope, to be specific. And we know that the Renaissance era started the awakening of humanism and individualism. This also applies to paintings and music. So back then, before the Renaissance, the music is more like very regulated. It's really have a limited choice of notations and very limited harmony because it was like monophonic. So it
Okay.
basically only have one one melody on that song.
So it's like a little strict.
Yeah, it's really a little strict, and also back then it was very sacred, like
Oh,
sacred. So it cannot be. It's really what is it like? It's not flexible at all. So entering the Renaissance, it's more. There are a lot of new elements coming in. They added the more like humanism feeling and also individualism in the church song. So the worship song can be more like emotional and have that like human value in it.
it's like a human touch.
Yeah, human touch in it. So they're also adding a technique called polyphonic, which differed to the previous monophonic. We had a lot of voices in one song, a lot of harmony like that. And then, and for the painting, it's more like we know that in Renaissance era there are a lot of like
A lot of
prominent
them,
paintings, right? Like the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci, and
Yes.
then Sistine Chapel by who?
Michelangelo.
Michelangelo, and then also something like Sistine, what the disputations
Of the Holy Sacrament.
yeah, that was we can think that
By-
this really popular, right? So what protruding about this specific era is that they added a lot of flexibility. So back then it was for for this kind of art spent painting, it was only for decorative things, or it's only for the church decorations like that. So it was very stiff, and it lacks of natural elements in it. And even if it had a lot of portraits of people, it depicted very stiff and not natural. But entering the Renaissance, they added a lot of new techniques to the painting so that the portrait can look more, it has, you can see it as something more normal,
Natural, okay.
natural, like we see in the daily life. Also that I'm sorry, there are a lot of techniques like what is sfumato. So it's basically like uh, softening the edge of the object, so it can look more realistic.
Oh, and this technique was basically like founded found in the Renaissance.
Yeah, yeah. And this was the awakening. There are a lot of prominent figures. They start to have their own genre in painting and also music. There are a lot of what is it like a lot of new
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 styles.
new styles, like something that is more human centered. That
Okay.
is, we have we have the rights and free will to like to paint and also to like make what we want.
Yeah.
It's less regulated, very more first time having free will, kind of, yeah,
Yeah,
very
kind of being like too free.
too free.
Well, it's a little similar like in the sculpture
Oh
as
right,
well.
that's
Because
yeah.
before the Renaissance, like the Greek art, the Greek Roman art, they already had like the perfect ideal of human perfection. But the difference is during the Renaissance, like there's this new technique being introduced, and it's called contrapposto, which basically means the weight of the body leaning in just one side. And we can see this technique in the statue David by Michelangelo.
That's very popular one.
Yeah, it's kind of like a new way of challenging that perfect idea of human body. And in the Renaissance, this perfection is somehow being preserved, being revived, but also challenged. And we can see this from like the contrapposto. That's and the sculpture was really like precise. They used like anatomical precision and intricate details. Like the details were amazing, and yeah, I think it's very clear to see that a lot of these sculptures were somehow like reviving or
Yeah.
bringing the Greek Roman art to life again, but in a different perspective.
Yeah, they involve a lot of emotion
Yeah.
and depth in it. So it looks like more humany. I don't know
Yeah,
how to
more
say it.
human. Yeah, more
More
natural.
human, more natural. Yeah. They are not only in like liberal arts, right? They are also in other aspect in Renaissance, like architecture,
Oh, yeah.
literature. Also,
Yeah,
there
I
are
think.
a lot of shifts in there.
Yeah, I think like I mean, architectures. It was like I think it was like very thriving as well because a lot of the painters were also great architects.
Oh,
So basically, in the architecture part of Renaissance, before Renaissance, in the Middle Ages, it has more of a Gothic style. So it has tall spires, like a more dark, dramatic shapes, and because of that, it is not exactly what the architects want at all. They don't want dark. They want to change it, and they took inspirations from ancient Roman buildings, and they want to send a message that beauty and logic could go hand in hand. So they don't focus only on the functionality. They also focus on the beauty of the structure, the shapes,
aesthetics.
yes, the shapes, and etc. So they also use symmetry and proportions, where they precisely mathematically measured uh, each parts of the building to make it symmetrical, so that it would be more, I guess you would say, attractive or beautiful for people to see. And
There were a lot of measurements.
yes,
Being involved.
there's a lot of measurements and then precision to be made, and they also use a lot of columns and domes. So the use of this is not only to support the building, the top of the building, as you might say, but it is also for the beauty buildings, like domes, the round shapes,
Yeah, it's
and
pretty.
the pillars. It it has like we have a lot of shapes in the pillars, right? Like there's also
The circles.
like maybe drawings on them.
Oh,
So
like
Like relief.
or
relics.
Oh, relics. Sorry. Yeah,
Yes,
relics.
I mean now it is already modernized. People have different ideas, but back then they beautify it by using columns and domes. And there's also a lot of famous architects like Filippo Brunelleschi. He actually designed the dome in Florence, the Dome Cathedral in Florence, and he made the linear perspective which helps architects and painters to create more depth and realism to their creations. And there's also Leon Battista Alberti, which wrote Dere Edificatoria, which is a theory book on the architecture about more on also the innovations in the Renaissance era, but also add blending classical ideas with it. He also designed Santa Maria Novella, which uses clean geometric and classical details also, which aligns with his book. So basically,
it basically like something I could think that it's something nostalgic from them. Like
Yeah.
we see that on like Greco-Roman
Yes.
era, and then it came back on Renaissance era.
Yeah, it's. I mean, Renaissance is the rebirth of Greco-Roman art, Greek-Roman aesthetics. And I think like a lot of influences from the Greek-Roman period came to the Renaissance, and I think it also touches the aspect of writings. I mean, like of course, with the printing press invention and stuff, I think the creation of
Massive production,
yeah,
right?
massive production and literature. I think it was also affected.
so not only was inspired by the Greek and Roman style, but the literature in Renaissance is actually mark mark. It is a mark of a major shift from religious texts and Latin writings from the Middle Ages. So the writers in the Renaissance began to explore more about individuality and then emotions and then the everyday life. They also start writing in a more local languages like
Italian.
Italy, yeah, Italian, so that people would relate to it more, would understand more about the literature and the word, not just the words, but also the emotions of the literature. There's also like forms of the writing, such as the poetry and the prose. Poetry is more like classical forms. It is actually more personal. It talks more about the individual emotions, personal emotions, also spiritual, and also usually talks about love. Like Francisco Petrarch was known for his love sonnets. He makes more about unrequited love, and in a shrug, he is often called father of humanism.
It's very influential, right?
It's very interesting to learn about this. So, this is also related to the spread of humanism,
Right.
and like as you said before, literature marked the growing of literature during the Renaissance marked like the shift from the religious texts,
Yeah.
and then it started to become like more I don't know, more deliberate.
It's more creative, I guess.
Yeah,
you
more
could say.
creative,
Right.
more innovative, and I think it's very, I don't know, it's very wonderful to also learn from the economic side. I don't know how to say it,
Yeah.
because the Renaissance.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
Anyway,
so basically, it doesn't only dives into the emotional side or maybe the creative side of it, but it also talks about what we usually do just from our everyday life. Like prose is actually more realistic than poetry. It is centered more on human behavior, like Giovanni Boccaccio is wrote the Decameron, which is 100 stories that explore love, tragedy, life lessons, and etc. All that happens in our everyday life, whatever the feelings that we experience from our stories, everything. And it is actually told by a group of young people that fled the plague. And uh, his writing actually captured, the everyday situation and also adds a little bit of humor and criticism of the society. So it's interesting how much this actually influenced us, influenced the people
the
also.
society.
Yeah, the society at that era.
They start to like they encourage themselves to bring their emotion and
Yeah.
turn them into art. That sounds really great.
To think creatively, innovatively, to think outside the box. I think I previously mentioned about economy, and so I've read a journal article that a few theorists think that the economy and the cultural development during the Renaissance were somehow related. And at some point, yes, it's true. So after the Black Death, some parts of the Europe, including Italy, were having trouble trying to sustain their economy, trying to keep it
Very
productive, like
control.
yeah, under control, because it was like hard to keep it under control because like a lot of people were
Worried,
yeah
concerned.
concerned, and the wealth distribution was not good, and a lot of people like became poor, and so the urban industry started exploiting the countryside natural resources. So a lot of like new industries like the silk industry or paper making, glass making, they were thriving. And according to some theorists, this industry somehow like encouraged the cultural development that happened during the Renaissance because the demand for cultural products, the demand for paintings, for example, the demand for books, the demand for musical pieces, those demands were rising, and it was a very good thing for the artists, for the artisans, and for the craftsmen, and this is also like a good way of seeing that economy and cultural development were related at the time. However, even though like the economy in Florence, let's say, it was thriving because of those industries, but the great artists were also like having some, I'd say, like trouble of supporting themselves because like buying the material for their work it was costly, and so they needed like patronage, like the Medici family. It was a very influential. They were a very influential and famous family from Italy, and they patronized great artists like Michelangelo and Donatello, and even scholars like Galileo Galilei. So yeah, I think because of this help from the Medici family, these great artists were able to produce their masterpiece, and not only uh, not only the, let's say, these painters and these the artist, not only the artist, but the Medici family also supported scholars like I've said before, Galileo Galilei, and he made a discovery about the about Jupiter and the stars and the moons that were orbiting around it. And later on, we'll discuss this. But at the same time, the Medici family was not the only patronage to this artist. Like the Catholic Church as well was also patronizing Michelangelo and other great artists. Like we can see from the Sistine Chapel. The Sistine Chapel was commissioned by Pope Julius II, and Disputation of the Holy Sacrament was also commissioned by the Pope Julius II. And so people at the during the Renaissance era were having like this conflicted sides, because at the same time the Catholic Church was supporting him. They patronized this artist, but at the same time the scholars began to think for themselves. The humanism started to rise, the individualism started to rise. They started thinking for themselves, so they made discoveries about sciences that were against teaching
the religion.
yeah, against the religion, against the teaching from the Catholic Church. And this was somehow like threatening for the Catholic Church. And I think this also started the Reformation and the Science Revolution. I mean, in the religion there was a revolution by Martin Luther.
Yes.
And in the Science Revolution, it started. One of the starters was the discovery made by Galileo Galilei. He found through a telescope that Jupiter had moons orbiting it, and this supported the idea of heliocentrism, the idea that the sun is the center of the universe and the planets are orbiting around it. And this heliocentrism idea was against the idea that was being taught by the Catholic Church. The Catholic Church believed that the Earth is the center of the universe and that everything was orbiting around us, which is not true. And that was considered threatening by the Catholic Church. I think, that's like one of the things that happened after the rise of these cultural developments or this humanism, individualism. Like people started thinking for themselves, people started realizing
A lot of things going on.
And it was a wild time.
And to mention, I forgot to mention, I think, that how big of a movement here that we already have humanism, individualism, realism, and basically we start to think that human possession is something that need to be emphasized in like arts and basically every life aspects, that it starts to be added to the academic subjects. So in the schools by then, it was expected for the elites or for the upper class that can afford school to understand, to be able to understand music and to at least have the knowledge of like arts like paintings and also like maybe musical instruments and also sculpting, because they are the ones who can afford that. So they believe that learning those kind of things, it also can improve human minds and consciousness. So it's pretty conflicted between the society and the religion. It was a great time having discourse with you guys.
And it's a wonderful topic to cover. And I think we pretty much have covered a lot of aspects from a lot of fields from the Renaissance era. And do you guys perhaps want to add something?
I already added mine. Maybe you have more to add something.
Well, I guess it is an era where a lot of people expresses their ideas, despite it being challenged by the religion. They still decided and want to make them and completed them and also tell the world about them. And I guess you could say that it's great that they did that because we now have what we have because of them.
them.
So
And so, yeah, I think a lot of things that we have today is from what we got during the Renaissance era, and I think it's very nice talking to you guys about this. It's a very wonderful topic, and I think
We're gonna wrap it up
yeah we can wrap it
now.
up. And
Thank you for listening.
thank you for listening, and see you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your attention.